So you think you know weird food? Adorable. Get ready for a historical menu so utterly unhinged, your takeout leftovers will look like haute cuisine. We've dug up 33 food facts that prove our ancestors either had iron stomachs or a very dark sense of humor. Or both. Forget what you learned in history class about dignified feasts. This is the stuff they didn't tell you. Pour yourself a stiff one. Things are about to get digestible, in the loosest sense of the word. 1. Okay, picture this. Ancient Rome, majestic Colosseum, epic chariot races, and the must-have condiment of the empire, garum. Now, if you're imagining a zesty salsa, bless your innocent heart, garum was the Roman equivalent of liquid gold, except it was made by letting fish guts, yeah, intestines, blood, the whole unholy mess, ferment in salt under the blazing sun for months. Can you imagine the stench? It probably peeled paint off the Parthenon. And the Romans? They loved it. Drizzled it on everything. Think of it as prehistoric Worcestershire sauce, if Worcestershire sauce was brewed in Satan's septic tank. More garum on my roasted dormouse, Jeeves. Just wow. Makes you appreciate a simple bottle of ketchup, doesn't it? 2. You thought garum was the pinnacle of ancient culinary questionable choices? Oh, honey, the Egyptians are waving from their pyramids saying, "Hold my beer and check out these maggot-infested fish heads." No, I'm not kidding. While they were busy inventing hieroglyphs and perfecting mummification, some bright spark decided that fermenting fish heads until they were teeming with live, wriggling maggots was peak gourmet. Apparently, the little crawlers added a certain texture. A protein punch? A zesty surprise? My stomach just did a backflip. Honestly, what was going through their heads? Darling, this fermented fish head is divine, but it could really use more squirming larvae. Humanity is a wild ride. 3. All right, let's vault into medieval Europe. Think knights, damsels, and dinner parties that were less past the salt and more duck the flying frog. The showstopper at any self-respecting medieval banquet wasn't the minstrel, it was the surprise pie. And the surprise wasn't a hidden cherry. Imagine slicing into a colossal pastry, and bam! A flock of live birds erupts, dive-bombing the countess's hairdo. Or better yet, a chorus line of actual frogs leaps out, probably traumatizing the court jester. Some tales even speak of pies big enough to hide a person, a little surprise guest popping out. It gives dinner and a show a whole new, slightly terrifying meaning. Waiter, there's a live pigeon in my pie. Yes, sir, that's the entertainment. 4. If your idea of an exotic breakfast is putting hot sauce on your eggs, then allow me to introduce China's tongzidan, or as they're affectionately known, virgin boy eggs. And no, that's not some quirky brand name. These are actual chicken eggs, hard-boiled for hours. The special ingredient? The urine of prepubescent boys, ideally under 10. Yes, urine. Apparently, they set up collection pots in primary schools. It's a springtime tradition in Dongyang, and locals claim they're packed with health benefits like preventing heat stroke. The aroma is described as unforgettable, which I can absolutely believe. Suddenly, my slightly overcooked scrambled eggs feel like a 5-star meal. Some traditions you just gotta admire from a very, very safe distance. 5. Now, let's tiptoe into the Reich Chancellery for a chat about Adolf Hitler's diet. Publicly, he was the picture of vegetarian purity, a man of simple tastes, all about that clean living. But here's the kicker, the little historical asterisk. Whispers from his kitchen staff suggest his meat-free meals weren't always so innocent. Apparently, to give his veggie dishes a bit more oomph, or maybe just to satisfy a hidden craving, his cooks would sneak in beef broth or even bouillon cubes made from bull's blood. Can you even? The Führer, munching on his pure vegetables, unknowingly or knowingly, getting a meaty, bloody kick. The irony is so thick you could spread it on toast, if you dared. 6. From the darkly ironic to the deeply tragic, we land in the siege of Leningrad. Nearly 900 days of unimaginable suffering. When food runs out, truly runs out, bread takes on a horrifying new meaning. Forget artisanal sourdough. This was survival fuel cobbled together from anything remotely edible, or not. Flour, if any, was stretched with sawdust, ground-up wallpaper for its starchy paste, pine needles, leather scraps, even industrial glue deemed less toxic. It was a grim testament to human endurance. A single, tiny, gritty slice was life itself. It's a stark, brutal reminder that history isn't always fun and games, and bizarre can take on a truly harrowing dimension when survival is on the line. 7. All right, let's lighten the mood, or at least change the flavor of bizarre. Welcome to Victorian London, a time of steam, smog, and brain jam. No, not a metaphor for a catchy tune. Literal jam. Or more accurately, a pate or spread, made from the tender, quivering brains of calves or sheep. Served on toast for breakfast, perhaps. Another spot of tea and do pass the cerebral spread, won't you, dear? The Victorians, with their corsets and strict manners, apparently had cast-iron stomachs when it came to offal. I'm trying to imagine the texture. Creamy? A bit lumpy? You know what? Never mind. Some culinary mysteries are best left unsolved. My own brain just shuddered. 8. Let's jet over to 16th century France, where the elite had a truly glittering approach to staying young. Eating gold. Yes, actual, shiny, 24-karat gold. They weren't just wearing it, they were sprinkling gold leaf on their salads, stirring it into their soups, probably even garnishing their escargots with it. The logic. Gold is pure, it doesn't tarnish, so surely eating it will make you pure and untarnishable. Eternal youth, one expensive nibble at a time. Of course, gold is completely indigestible, it just passes through. So the only thing they were achieving was fantastically sparkly trips to the outhouse. Talk about a Midas touch. In the most literal and frankly hilarious way, truly the original golden poop. 9. So picture this. It's the late 19th century, and Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, a man with some rather strong opinions on digestive health and moral purity, is on a mission. His target? The dreaded scourge of self-pleasure. And his weapon? Breakfast cereal. Yes, the very same Kellogg who gave us cornflakes believed that a bland, fiber-rich diet could curb those sinful urges. He genuinely thought that by feeding people these simple flakes, he could lead them down a path of righteousness. One unexciting breakfast at a time. It makes you look at that box of cereal in your cupboard a little differently, doesn't it? Turns out, your Frosted Flakes have a surprisingly chaste and slightly judgmental ancestry. 10. The 1950s in America. A time of rock and roll, poodle skirts, and an almost childlike enthusiasm for radiation. Seriously. After the dawn of the atomic age, anything atomic was cool, futuristic, and, believe it or not, sometimes considered healthy. This led to some truly mind-boggling products, including, get this, radioactive cookies for kids. Small amounts of uranium and thorium were actually incorporated into some treats, under the utterly misguided belief that a little bit of radiation was good for you. Eat up, Timmy. It's got that healthy atomic glow. It's a miracle an entire generation didn't start glowing in the dark. Talk about a half-life with your half pint of milk. 11. Let's journey to China, where a particular delicacy has been prized for centuries, not for its taste, but for its architectural origins. I'm talking about bird's nest soup. Now, these aren't just any old twigs and leaves cobbled together. Oh no. The key ingredient is the nest of the swiftlet, a tiny bird that builds its home primarily out of its own saliva. That's right, hardened bird spit. These saliva nests are harvested, cleaned, one hopes thoroughly, and then simmered in broth. It's incredibly expensive and believed to have numerous health benefits. So you're essentially paying top dollar for a bowl of spit soup. Suddenly, chicken noodle doesn't seem so pedestrian. 12. Roman Emperor Elgabilis. Remember that name because this guy wasn't just an emperor. He was a performance artist of a truly chaotic stripe, especially when it came to dinner parties. Imagine being invited to the imperial palace, expecting a feast fit for a king, only to be served rocks. Beautifully painted stones disguised as fruit, or perhaps wooden carvings made to look like succulent roasts. Elgabilis apparently found it hilarious to watch his esteemed guests tentatively poke at their food, wondering if they dared take a bite. It was less about sustenance and more about his own twisted amusement. Dining with Elgabilis must have been a real gamble. Feast or famine, or maybe just a chipped tooth. 13. Ahoy, mateys! Let's talk about a treasure from the deep that's far weirder than gold or jewels: ambergris. This waxy, often foul-smelling substance is, to put it delicately, a sort of intestinal byproduct from sperm whales. Think of it as a whale hairball, but much, much rarer. And for centuries, this whale vomit, essentially, was worth more than its weight in gold. Why? Because it was a key ingredient in high-end perfumes as a fixative. But wait, there's more. It was also used as a flavoring in food and drinks, particularly desserts, and was believed to be a potent aphrodisiac. So, that fancy dessert might have had a secret ingredient that once floated in the ocean after a rather uncomfortable moment for a whale. Romantic, isn't it? 14. Throughout history, in various cultures around the world, a practice existed that chills to the bone: ritual cannibalism. This wasn't about hunger. It was about power, spirituality, and a belief that by consuming the flesh of a fallen enemy or a revered ancestor, one could absorb their strength, courage, or wisdom. From tribes in Papua New Guinea to certain warrior societies, the idea was that you literally become what you eat, or rather, who you eat. It's a concept so alien to most of us today, yet it speaks volumes about the diverse and sometimes terrifying ways humans have tried to make sense of life, death, and power. Definitely puts a different spin on "you are what you eat." 15. Victorian England again. And this time, the danger wasn't lurking in the main course, but in the sweet treats. Those brightly colored candies that looked so appealing to children? Some of them were tinted with Paris green, a vibrant arsenic-based pigment. Yes, arsenic, that same stuff famous for being a rather effective poison. It gave candies a lovely, enticing green hue, but it also, unsurprisingly, made children incredibly sick, and sometimes fatally so. And the worst part? Even when the dangers became known, its use continued for a while because it was cheap and the color was just so darn pretty. A literal case of looks can kill. Makes you grateful for modern food coloring regulations, doesn't it? 16. Picture this: a medieval monastery. A place of quiet contemplation, prayer, and creatively circumventing the rules of fasting. During Lent or other periods of religious observance, consuming alcohol was often a no-go. But food, particularly liquid food like soup, was generally permissible. So, what did some enterprising monks do? They brewed alcoholic soups, essentially strong beer or wine, perhaps with some herbs and spices thrown in to make it officially soup. It was a clever, if slightly sneaky, way to keep their spirits up, pun intended, while still technically adhering to the letter, if not the spirit, of the law. Brother Michael, this barley broth is particularly uplifting today. Wouldn't you agree? Holy loopholes, Batman! 17. Imagine you're a soldier in Napoleon's Grand Army, trudging through the frozen hellscape of the Russian winter during the infamous retreat from Moscow. Supplies are non-existent, starvation is your constant companion, and your stomach gnaws with a hunger so profound it borders on madness. What do you do when even the horses have been eaten? Well, desperate times call for desperate recipes. Soldiers were reportedly so famished, they resorted to boiling their own leather accoutrements, belts, straps, even the soles of their worn-out boots, in a desperate attempt to extract some semblance of nourishment. The resulting soup would have been a gelatinous, acrid concoction, barely qualifying as food, yet it was a testament to the raw, primal will to survive. It really makes you appreciate that can of beans in your pantry, doesn't it? Suddenly, shoe leather tough takes on a whole new, horrifyingly literal meaning. 18. Let's head back to China for another culinary marvel that plays a long game: century eggs, also known as pidan. Now, despite the name, they aren't actually 100 years old, though they certainly look like they've seen a few millennia. These are typically duck, chicken, or quail eggs, preserved in a mixture of clay, ash, salt, quicklime, and rice hulls for several weeks to several months. The process transforms the egg white into a translucent amber-colored jelly with a slightly ammonia-like aroma, and the yolk turns a dark green or even black with a creamy, pungent flavor. For the uninitiated, the appearance alone can be a serious test of courage. It's like something you'd expect to find in an alien's lunchbox. But for connoisseurs, it's a beloved delicacy, proving that sometimes the weirdest transformations yield the most intriguing tastes, or at least the most talked about. 19. If you're an adventurous eater, you might have tried insects. But how about a salad where the insects fight back? In Laos and parts of Thailand, a popular dish called Khoi Kai Mat features live weaver ants and their eggs. Yes, live. These aren't just any ants. Weaver ants are known for their rather aggressive nature and painful bite. So, as you're enjoying this tangy, spicy salad, you might get a little zesty surprise in the form of an ant literally nipping at your tongue. It's described as adding a citrusy, sour crunch to the dish, along with an undeniable thrill factor. It's certainly one way to make sure your meal is fresh. Talk about an interactive dining experience. It's not just food, it's a culinary combat sport. 20. Let's swing by Elizabethan England, a time of Shakespeare, ruffs, and a rather peculiar beauty standard set by Queen Elizabeth I herself. The Queen had a notorious sweet tooth, particularly for sugary concoctions, which in an era before widespread dental hygiene had a predictable effect on her royal choppers. They turned black and decayed. But here's the kicker. Instead of this being seen as a flaw, it became a bizarre status symbol. Blackened teeth were associated with wealth, a sign that you could afford all that expensive sugar. So some court ladies, wanting to emulate their queen and appear affluent, would deliberately blacken their own teeth with various substances. Imagine that. Darling, your smile is so delightfully rotten today. You must be doing terribly well. Fashion, it seems, has always had its painful moments. 21. Back in Europe during the 16th and 17th centuries, if you were suffering from something like epilepsy, headaches, or even just a general feeling of malaise, your friendly neighborhood apothecary might have prescribed a rather ghoulish remedy: skull syrup, or powdered human skull. Yes, you heard that correctly. The skulls of deceased individuals, particularly those who had died violently, as their vital spirit was thought to be stronger, were considered potent medicine. The bone would be ground into a powder or steeped to create tinctures and syrups. It was believed that the essence of the deceased's life force could be transferred to the patient. It's a chilling reminder of how far medical understanding has come. Suddenly, a spoonful of bitter cough syrup doesn't seem quite so bad, does it? 22. CocaCola, the pause that refreshes, an iconic American beverage. But did you know that its original recipe, back in the late 19th century, had a little extra kick? Pharmacist John Pemberton, its inventor, included an extract from coca leaves, which, yes, is the source of cocaine. While the amount was relatively small and it was later removed in the early 20th century, around 1903, though debates continue about trace amounts for longer, for a time, you could genuinely get a tiny bit of a cocaine buzz along with your sugary refreshment. It was initially marketed as a temperance drink and a patent medicine, claiming to cure everything from headaches to impotence. Feeling down? Have a Coke and a jolt? It certainly gives new meaning to Coke adds life. 23. Medieval and Renaissance banquets were all about spectacle, and no dish screamed, "Look at me," quite like the cockatrice. This wasn't just food, it was culinary Frankensteining. Imagine taking the front half of a suckling pig and meticulously sewing it onto the rear half of a capon, a castrated rooster, or a turkey, or vice versa. This bizarre hybrid creature was then roasted whole and often presented with its original feathers reattached to the bird half, making it look like some mythical beast ready to take flight, or oink. It was designed to shock, amuse, and impress guests with the chef's skill and the host's extravagance. One can only imagine the dinner table conversation. Is that a pig chicken or a chicken pig? And which end do I carve first? 24. Let's travel to modern-day Thailand, where a popular street food and restaurant dish can be a bit of a shock to the uninitiated palate. Lu Mu, or Nam Tok Mu. This is a rich, spicy soup or salad often made with pork, but the star ingredient for the truly adventurous version is fresh pig's blood, or sometimes duck blood. The blood is often mixed raw with spices, herbs, cooked meat, and sometimes offal, creating a thick, savory, and intensely flavored dish. While it might sound alarming to some, for many Thais, it's a beloved comfort food, prized for its umami depth. And sometimes, to add another layer of intrigue, it's served with a century egg or a pink preserved egg on the side. It's a bold dish that definitely doesn't shy away from its ingredients. 25. Picture the vast wind-swept steppes of Central Asia. Nomadic tribes living a life dictated by the elements and their herds. Resources can be scarce, especially when it comes to things like firewood for boiling water or, well, tea leaves. So, what's a resourceful nomad to do when they fancy a brew? Enter sheep dung tea. Yes, you read that correctly. Dried sheep droppings, which burn surprisingly well as fuel, were also sometimes used to brew a type of tea. The dried pellets would be steeped in hot water, creating an earthy, if undoubtedly unique, beverage. It sounds utterly bizarre to our modern sensibilities, but in a harsh environment where every resource counted, it was a practical, if not exactly gourmet solution. It certainly gives a new meaning to waste not, want not. I'll stick to Earl Grey, thanks. 26. If you consider yourself a coffee connoisseur, you might have heard whispers of Kopi Luwak, one of the most expensive and talked about coffees in the world. But the story behind its price tag is rather digestive. This Indonesian coffee is made from coffee cherries that have been eaten and then excreted by the Asian palm civet, a small, cat-like creature. The civets supposedly pick only the ripest, choicest cherries, and as the beans pass through their digestive tracts, enzymes are said to alter their composition, reducing acidity and creating a uniquely smooth, rich flavor. After the civet does its business, the beans are collected from its droppings, thoroughly washed, one sincerely hopes, and then roasted. So, that $50 cup of coffee? It's literally been through the ass of a wild animal. Bon appetit, or perhaps bottoms up? 27. Let's venture to the Italian island of Sardinia, home to a cheese that's not for the faint of heart or stomach, casu marzu. Translated literally as rotten cheese, this traditional sheep's milk pecorino takes fermentation to a whole new squirming level. Cheese fly larvae, Piophila casei, are deliberately introduced into the cheese. As these tiny maggots eat their way through the paste, their digestive processes break down the fats, resulting in a very soft, almost liquid texture and an intensely pungent, ammoniated flavor. And here's the kicker. The cheese is traditionally eaten while the larvae are still alive and wriggling. Some people even wear eye protection, as the maggots can jump several inches when disturbed. It's considered a delicacy, a testament to ancient cheese-making traditions, and a health hazard in the eyes of the EU. Talk about a cheese with character. And a few thousand tiny writhing roommates. 28. Across the globe in Southeast Asia, particularly the Philippines, you'll find a street food delicacy that challenges many Western palates: Belut. This isn't your average hard-boiled egg. Belut is a fertilized duck embryo, boiled alive and eaten in its shell. The ideal age for a Belut embryo is typically between 17 to 21 days, when the features of the baby duck, like its beak, feathers, and tiny bones, are already distinguishable but still tender enough to be eaten. It's often seasoned with salt, chili, and vinegar, and the broth surrounding the embryo is sipped first, followed by the yolk and the embryo itself. It's prized for being a protein-rich, hearty snack. For outsiders, it can be a confronting culinary experience, but for locals, it's a beloved everyday treat. It's definitely a dish that looks back at you. 29. Iceland, land of fire, ice, and hakkarl. This is the country's national dish, and it's not for the timid. Hakkarl is Greenland shark, or sometimes basking shark, that has been fermented for months and then hung to dry for several more. Why the elaborate process? Because fresh Greenland shark meat is poisonous due to its high uric acid and trimethylamine oxide content. The fermentation process neutralizes these toxins, but it also results in an incredibly strong ammonia-rich smell and a taste that many, including chef Anthony Bourdain, have described as one of the most disgusting things they've ever eaten. It's often served in small cubes on toothpicks, sometimes accompanied by a shot of local schnapps called Brennivine to wash it down. It's a true test of culinary bravery, a pungent bite of Viking heritage. 30. Let's fly to France for a dish so controversial, so steeped in a bizarre ritual of gourmandise and cruelty, that its consumption became a clandestine affair: the ortolan bunting. This tiny songbird, no bigger than your thumb, was considered the ultimate Epicurean delight. The birds were captured, force-fed grains in darkness to fatten them up, and then drowned in Armagnac brandy. They were then roasted whole and eaten in a single, hot, bone-crunching bite. But the ritual didn't end there. Diners would traditionally cover their heads with a large napkin while consuming the ortolan. The purported reasons vary: to concentrate the exquisite aromas, to hide their gluttony from God, or perhaps just to shield their shame from onlookers. A truly decadent and dark delicacy from a bygone era of extreme indulgence. 31. Back to ancient Rome, where they had a rather heavy metal approach to sweetening their wine. If a batch of wine turned out too acidic or sour for their liking, some Roman vintners would simmer grape juice or wine in lead pots or pans. This process created a substance called sapa, or defrutum, which was incredibly sweet due to the formation of lead acetate, also known as sugar of lead. This toxic sweetener was then added to wines and other foods to improve their flavor. Of course, lead is a cumulative poison, causing a host of horrific health problems, including brain damage and infertility. Some historians even theorize that widespread lead poisoning, partly from this practice, contributed to the decline of the Roman Empire. Talk about a killer ingredient. It makes you wonder if a touch of sweetness was worth the slow, agonizing demise. 32. Still in Rome, let's talk about a furry little delicacy that graced the tables of the wealthy: the edible dormouse, or glis. These weren't your common or garden mice. These were plump, squirrel-like rodents. The Romans considered them a true gourmet treat. They would capture them and then fatten them up in special terracotta jars called gliraria, which had little internal ledges for the dormice to run on and air holes. They were fed a rich diet of walnuts, chestnuts, and acorns until they were suitably portly. Then, they were typically stuffed with pork mince and spices, roasted or baked in honey. Imagine little crunchy, honey-glazed rodents. It was a status symbol, a tiny, furry testament to your wealth and refined, if somewhat peculiar, taste. Definitely not your average cheese and crackers. 33. Let's cap off this banquet of bizarre with a dish born from desperation and ingenuity during America's Great Depression: the mock apple pie. Or, as some remember its even more frugal cousin, mock banana ham. When fresh fruit like apples became an unaffordable luxury, resourceful home cooks, often relying on government pamphlets or shared recipes, turned to the most unexpected ingredient: Ritz crackers. Yes, those buttery, salty crackers were crushed, cooked with sugar, lemon juice, cinnamon, and butter, then baked into a pie crust. Miraculously, the texture and flavor bore an uncanny resemblance to actual apple pie. And the banana ham? That involved taking banana peels, yes, peels, boiling them, then baking them with mustard and perhaps a bit of jelly, to mimic the taste and texture of ham. It's a testament to human resilience and the sheer creativity that can emerge when you're staring an empty pantry in the face. Suddenly, that mystery meatloaf doesn't seem so experimental, does it? And there you have it. 33 times history's menu went completely off the rails. From maggot-infested cheese to brain jam and radioactive cookies, it's a miracle our ancestors didn't just give up and decide to photosynthesize. So, what's the absolute weirdest, most stomach-churning thing you've ever heard of being eaten, past or present? Drop your culinary horror stories in the comments below. I'm morbidly curious. If this historical buffet blew your mind, go ahead, smash that like button, subscribe for more mind-bending history, and maybe treat yourself to a nice, normal sandwich. You've earned it.